I want to walk you through something that actually completely changed the way that I think about business growth, not just for myself, but for every founder that I've worked with. It is called the 4 Ps framework. And if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or like your business just cannot grow without you having to work more and more hours, this is actually going to help a little bit. It is part one of the Founder Freedom Compass, which is the guide that really helps reach the true North Star destination that you've set for your business and how it really fits into your life. Look, every business has natural limitations. There are just ceilings that you hit when you max out your resources. It's money, energy, time, and mental clarity. And when you hit one of these constraints, you really need to know what it is and how to deal with it. If you want to learn more about these and these types of limitations, you can look up the theory of constraints. In my world, I actually call these bottlenecks. And once we identify them, we can actually fix them. For most of my clients, the bottleneck is actually them. Tell me if any of these actually sound like you. And don't worry, look, I've been in this exact same place. You're still doing everything yourself and you have no time to grow or strategize or see what's really working and what's not. You just don't have the mental bandwidth to learn or lead differently. It has to be status quo right now because you can't add anything else to your plate. You can't delegate effectively because everything still is in your head. And besides, no one will ever do it like you do. You're chasing what I call spaghetti noodle strategies, throwing the ideas at the wall to see what sticks with no real data or information to tell you if any of these ideas are really getting you to where you want to go. Or maybe you've avoided asking for help, hoping things are just going to work out. You know, like if it's meant to be, it's going to be. Look, you can build a business that supports the life that you want instead of constantly pulling you away from it. You can create mental space to be present with your family and time to take care of yourself. You can actually take a vacation and find time to make even more money while you do it. But it does require a lot of intention and some documentation. But look, I absolutely promise that it is 100% possible. Some very wonderful people once introduced me to a very different definition of leadership. Look, leadership is creating a future that would not otherwise exist, and it works or attempts to work for all relevant parties. If your business is not working for you in the way that you would like, it is time to be a leader in it and to step up and make a change so that you can reach the destination that you envisioned when you started it or as it started to grow. I had so many sleepless nights in both of my past businesses, like way more than I'd actually like to admit, because I'd lie awake just thinking about how I couldn't take a single day off, even when my kids were sick. I spent a good 3 months or so working one-handed during every single nap time because my youngest would not sleep or eat at daycare. In fact, she would not sleep unless I was holding her. So I couldn't even get just like a 1 hour break to sit with her. I also have lied awake thinking about how I knew I needed to hire an assistant, but I couldn't afford someone experienced. And I didn't have time to commit to training someone that couldn't just come in and be a self starter. And since so much was living in my head, I did not have anything documented to even hand off. I would lie awake thinking about how I wanted to launch a product that didn't require me to be in every single step, but I was too drained from bouncing between tasks and client work that did need me involved in every single piece. I lie awake thinking about how I really wanted to take a 3-day leadership course so I could learn to lead my business better, but I couldn't carve out the time to actually be away for that long. Or, I used to lie awake thinking about how can I financially support my family with my husband's retirement coming up and without working nonstop so that I could give him the year off that he actually wanted. It is so easy to think that you need just one more thing to get you to that next level, one more client, one more offer, one more hour in the day. But that's usually just actually tightening the bottleneck, or maybe we'll call it the noose here. And it always leads to burnout. After helping dozens of founders, I have learned that there are 4 main areas where bottlenecks actually happen. And they're also the same 4 areas that determine whether your business can actually grow. So let's take a look at the 4 most common types of bottlenecks that I see in most businesses, no matter what size they are: people, processes, priorities, performance. 4 Ps. The truth is, look, friction in any of these areas is going to slow you down. But if we can pinpoint exactly where that friction is happening, the real constraint and why, then we can remove it and start to restore that momentum that you once had in your business. Not to mention the excitement and energy that you once felt to do what you do, and with who you serve and how. If we don't remove the friction, it's just going to kill your momentum. It'll actually start to run you the wrong way. And that's what we call burnout. Constant friction rubbing on you, your mental energy, your time, your energy. It all leads to one thing, and that's you feeling drained and starting to think that this thing that you've built is just not going to work. Whether that's because you have to work too many hours doing the things that you really hate, or the fact that you can't grow more and you don't have time to find any new sales or create the product that you just know would get you out of the high touch work that takes all of your time right now. For example, you might think that your constraint is sales, but the real issue is that you have no time to actually focus on sales because every onboarding is custom. Your back end is not set up to repeat itself, and you're actually stuck in work that doesn't truly require you. When we actually get to the heart of it, we can start to design a business that grows without you doing more. That doesn't mean that you need a huge team. It just means that you can now build toward your version of freedom and success. So let's dive into what each P actually looks like as a bottleneck and how it shows up in your business. First is people. Look, it's not just about hiring, it's about having the right people in the right roles with the right expectations. This bottleneck shows up as stalling on getting help because you just can't afford it. It shows up as hiring, but still doing most of their work because it's just easier if I do it myself. Or not hiring someone because nothing is set up to easily turn it over. So again, it's just easier if I do it myself. It shows up as not knowing what you would even delegate because it all lives in your head. I recently had a conversation with someone who said, I just do this one task because it only takes me 15 minutes and it's really not worth training anyone on. But here's the truth. That 15-minute task actually takes you 32 minutes. It costs you about $80 in labor and the opportunity cost of focusing that 32 minutes on something else that might land you a new $5,000 a month client. The reason it costs 32 minutes is that becomes on average, it actually takes you 27 minutes to recoup after you switch between tasks. When you're a founder or the lead service provider, 15 minutes is not just 15 minutes. So, how do we fix this? Well, we fix it by clearly defining roles, including your own. And then we fix it by setting up your tools and SOPs for delegation so that we can start to free up your time, say maybe 10 to 20 hours a week, so that you can focus on what matters most. We get rid of that 80% that's actually holding you back so that you can start to focus on the 20% that's really going to move your business forward. Number 2, processes. Look, when everything lives in your head, nothing is repeatable or scalable. This bottleneck shows up as constantly reinventing the wheel. And you know what this looks like. Every time you sign a new client, you just go through the process and it never really looks the same because you're winging it. It looks like pausing to double check that you didn't miss a step or trying to constantly remember what you know you've forgotten to do. Many times this looks like waking up in the middle of the night because you suddenly remembered that you did forget to do this one specific thing. And then you're not able to go back to sleep because now 100 other things have suddenly popped into your brain. It looks like micromanaging a hire because they keep asking the same questions over and over and over again. And it's probably because they just don't get it or they don't know what they're doing, right? It cannot be because you don't have a clear system and the right tools in place to outline your expectations of their performance and then easily turn those key tasks over, right? Even if you don't plan to hire, the right systems, tools, and SOPs free up your mental bandwidth. I have learned that burnout actually comes from holding too much in your head rather than from doing too much. When you put the right systems in place, A, you're going to save a ton of time in onboarding, and B, nothing has to live in your head and then you wake up in a sweat in the middle of the night. Nobody wants that. Number 3, priorities. Look, this one's a little sneakier because busyness often feels like productivity, but not everything that you do moves your business forward in the way that you want it to. And not everything moves it forward equally. Some things might show up as 10% effort with 50% gain. But other things are going to be 50% effort with 10% gains. Look, you have to be able to prioritize so that you're focused on those types of projects, revenue producers, or tasks that are going to give you the 50% gain for the 10% effort. Priority bottlenecks really show up as launching new offers without knowing what's actually driving your results. Always in firefighting mode, living by your inbox, Slack, or Voxer. Not knowing what the next step is actually going to be to create your version of freedom. And it looks like not asking for client feedback so that you can fully understand what works for them and what doesn't. Without some clarity here, you're going to end up busy, but you're not going to be effective. How many of us have wasted hours and hours on something only to not have it produce the results that we wanted? Look, I certainly know that I have. And finally, number 4, performance. This one's really quite simple, but it's usually very overlooked by the majority of solopreneurs and small business owners that I know, and actually even by a large number of larger business owners and leaders as well. In a nutshell, if you don't define what success looks like, you cannot measure it. And if you can't measure it, you cannot improve it. Additionally, if your team is not clear in what you expect for them, or if your clients are not clear in the value that you provide, then neither of these relationships can actually succeed for the long term. This bottleneck often shows up as doing all the things, but not actually moving forward or making progress. Here's the key phrase: I was so busy today, but I don't even know what I accomplished. You ever said that? I have. Hires who it shows up as hires who don't meet expectations because those expectations were not clear. I cannot tell you the number of times that I have heard, I tried hiring a VA, but it was just too hard. They did not know what to do or what they were doing. Look, I've been here. It wasn't them, it was me. I did not know what to turn over or have time to train. But there's always a way that you can do this with some proactive setup. It also shows up as not knowing what would take your business to the next level beyond more money. Look, more sales is not a good performance measure in all areas of the business. In fact, you can make more money with the same or less sales if we focus on the right things. Clarity in performance means clear scopes, defined value, measurable results, and regular reviews so that there is no room for misalignment. So, just why does all this stop you from growing? Look, all these bottlenecks can stop you from growing in your business and even in your life. And here's why: they make you reactive, they keep you in constant catch up mode, and they make your business rely entirely on you. And when that happens, scaling actually becomes next to impossible without sacrificing yourself, your mental capacity, your health, your future, the future that you actually want to create. Wanting to fix your bottlenecks does not mean you have to want to grow or run a huge company, although you certainly can if that is something you want to do. How you define your own freedom is actually personal to you. That's why at Scale, before we touch systems or delegation, we actually start with your vision, your ideal role in your business, the life that you want this business to support, and the ideal client experience that you want to create. If you don't define these things first, then you risk building something that does not fit your life or create the intended impact that you want to have in the world. And the truth is, I've made this exact mistake in the past. I built a multi 7-figure company that I did not enjoy, had my husband traveling all over the world for half a month at a time, and it kept me so bogged down that I could not focus on growth. So what did we do? We sold it, and I actually started Scale with a clear picture of what freedom meant to me. It meant more time with my kids and husband. It meant greater impact on the clients that I was truly passionate about serving. And it meant leading into learning and leading. So, step 1, what does freedom look like for you? Once you start to get clear in the answer to this question, here are the next steps. First, communicate your vision. Define your model, your ideal role, your values, and the outcomes that you want to create. Diagnose the bottlenecks. Which of the 4 Ps is actually creating the most friction right now and needs to be your priority? Number 3, prioritize one fix at a time. Start with the tightest bottleneck. How can we remove it? Number 4, reinforce with systems. Set up and use tools to simplify, not to complicate. And then number 5, rinse, repeat. The goal is momentum, it's not perfection. So when you address the bottlenecks in this way, you can actually take home more clients without more hours. Your team is going to step up because they now know what success looks like. You're going to get back time to think, lead, and rest. And then you're going to stop spinning your wheels and actually start scaling on your terms. And outside of your business, you're going to be more present with your family. You're not going to be glued to your phone or computer. I left mine here yesterday for a 7-hour hike. You'll actually be able to step away without things falling apart. And then you'll start to remember why you started this business in the first place. Look, the 4 Ps do not exist in isolation. They're just one side of the framework of what I call the freedom compass. And on the other side, you actually have 4 key destinations. That's your vision, your role, your client experience, and your metrics. But the fastest way to reach those destinations is to figure out which one of these levers you need to pull and prioritize in your business. Most of my clients just come to me because they know something's broken, but they don't know exactly what they need to fix. And so that's what we work through. That's the first strategy and alignment call. And then we create the path to realize the success in getting to those 4 destinations. If you're ready to start to see what's holding you back from realizing, any of those things in your business, then just reach out. We can book a free strategy call. But either way, I hope this was helpful today, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.